It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of October 24th, 1997. Only 3 movies to look at today, so let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and jump on into it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend. Okay, biggest in quotation marks, because this was not a big hit financially, but it has gone on to have a huge cult following since its release, and that film is, of course, Gattaca.
Genetics. What can it mean? The ability to perfect the physical and mental characteristics of every unborn child. Of genetic engineering to choose the genes. In the not-too-distant future, our DNA will determine everything about us. A minute drop of blood, saliva, or a single hair determines where you can work, who you should marry, what you're capable of achieving. In a society where success is determined by science, divided by the standards of perfection, one man's only chance,
how do you expect to pull this off? I don't know exactly.
Is to hide his own identity.
This is the last day that you're going to be you and I'm going to be me.
By borrowing someone else's.
Congratulations. What about the interview? That was it.
Do you think you'd be doing what you're doing if it wasn't for who you are, what you are?
I have a feeling you might be there under false pretenses of playing somebody else's hand. They've got my picture plastered up all over the place. They don't recognize me. They don't recognize me.
They don't recognize me. I don't recognize you. They won't believe that one of their elite could have suckered them all this time.
They are going to find me.
But in a place where any cell from any part of your body can betray you, how do you hide? When we all shed 500 million cells a day. Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman. Welcome to Gattaca.
Of course, this is written and directed by Andrew Niccol, who would later go on to write The Truman Show, which came out the year after this, but he'd also direct stuff like Simone, Lord of War, a very good, underrated Nicolas Cage movie, which is probably my favorite movie of his. He also did the infamous In Time, which is not the best movie. In fact, it's not really a good movie whatsoever. And then he followed that up with The Host, which was basically a Twilight knockoff, and needless to say, his career certainly has gone much lower than how it started, because this is a really, really entertaining movie. You got Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman in here, as well as Jude Law, and it presents a biopunk version of a future society driven by eugenics, where potential children are conceived through genetic selection to ensure they possess the best hereditary traits of their parents. And basically, you have a guy who's conceived outside that program and struggles to overcome genetic discrimination to realize his dream of going into space. And the film touches on stuff like reproductive technologies that facilitates eugenics, the possible consequences of such technological developments for societies, and also examines the idea of destiny and the ways in which it can and does govern lives. And you have characters here continuing to battle both with society and with themselves to find their place in the world, and who are they determined to be according to their genes. And you could say that this movie was pretty much ahead of its time. I mean, we talk about this stuff nowadays, and this is the film that kind of brought it up pretty early on. This was right before they even tried This is right before they even tried cloning, when they tried to clone the Dolly the sheep, and that didn't turn out well whatsoever. And the movie itself really is a smart, very intelligent film, and it works because you have a great cast to work around with. Ethan Hawke is very good in here, along with Uma Thurman, Jude Law, Alan Arkin you see in the trailer, Lauren Dean. Even Gore Vidal has a role in this movie. Alexander Berkeley. You have Jane Brooke, Elias Koteas, Maya Rudolph, Blair Underwood, Tony Shalhoub, Dean Norris, Ken Marino. I mean, there's a lot of notable names in this movie, and they're all throughout the course of this film. And it's a visually stylistic film. It's a very nice looking film. It looks very reminiscent to something on the lines of Blade Runner and all these different dystopian type films. It has its own unique edge to it, though, that makes it really impressive for what it was trying to do. And it's a really damn good movie. And it's a film that works here better than it did with In Time, which this director used a lot of influence on, calling it a bastard child of Gattaca. But the differences between that and this In Time and this movie is that this is actually a good film, and In Time is a steaming pile of garbage, which, if you've seen that movie, you probably agree with me, because it was not a very good film, and quite frankly, I don't know why anybody would think it was good anyway, but, excuse me, but that's just my personal take on it. But this is a very intense movie. It's a very visually stylistic film, has great acting all around, a great story, a great deeper meaning behind it. I mean, it's a really good allegory for what was going on at the time and some of the stuff that we get to down the road here. And it's a well done film. It's a really well done film that did not do well at the box office whatsoever. It was seen as a flop at the time, but got the critical reception and actually has had a cult following ever since then. And you can see why. It's a really, really impressive film. I can't recommend this one enough. Gattaca, fantastic film. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie here. The Mel Gibson produced family film, Fairytale, A True Story.
Do you believe in fairies?
Francis and Elsie shared a life of whispered secrets and make-believe. Until one day,
Careful!
they happened to make the biggest discovery of the 20th century.
Someone, did you see it? We've taken a photograph.
Oh, good heavens! If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it.
So you believe in fairies, do you?
I wouldn't see them if I didn't.
Now, they're out to prove to the world
The game's over. How'd you do it?
We just took the photographs, Dad.
it's not what you see with your eyes that's important.
You believe you've got fairies at the bottom of your garden?
Do I look like someone who believes in fairies?
It's what you know in your heart.
Why haven't I ever seen any of them?
Grown-ups don't know how to believe.
From the Academy Award-winning producer of Forrest Gump and the Academy Award-winning producer of Braveheart
Come out from your fairy bower. Come upon this golden hour.
comes a motion picture event
I'm going! Is it a fairy?
the whole family can believe in.
The truth now!
Leave her alone. The fairies are going to come out and kick your butt.
Sure they are.
Fairytale, a true story. This year, the holidays are more magical than ever.
Is it whimsical enough for you yet, kiddies? Because this trailer is telling you to be mystified, be whimsy, and all that type of stuff. And just, it's, needless to say, this is not a pretty good movie. I mean, it's a film that has potential to work in several areas. I mean, this is a film that has a lot of high ambitions. It's supposedly based on a story on the Cottingley fairies, and it follows these two children in 1917 England who take a photograph and are soon believed to be the first scientific evidence of the existence of fairies. And you think there'd be a good idea to it, you think there'd be some charm to the film, but really when you watch the movie overall, it's just not there. The fairies in particular here are not that well designed. There's nothing really all that memorable about them whatsoever. It just feels like what you would see from a studio executive who said, we need to make a movie that brings in magical elements like fairies and mystical creatures like this. Oh, and let's have Arthur Conan Doyle in this movie as well as Harry Houdini. Like, you see some notable people in here: Arthur Conan Doyle, Elsie Wright, Harry Houdini, Francis Griffiths. Peter Pan is in this movie for a play, but it's just, I think it was too ambitious for its own good. It's a film that has some elements of magic to it, but at the same time, there's just nothing really there that makes it anything unique or exciting about it. It just feels like a film that was put together by a committee at a studio and said, what do we do to want to create our own Disney caliber adventure film, and just do that. And needless to say, the movie did not transpire so well on the big screen. It had some good intentions to it, but it just really didn't live up to the potential that it really had. It's a mostly forgettable film, despite some pretty good performances all around in here. I mean, Peter O'Toole's pretty good in here as Conan Doyle. Harvey Keitel's pretty good as Harry Houdini. There's even Mel Gibson playing a sergeant in this, which is a pretty interesting little cameo there. Bill Nighy's in here as well. So it has some elements to it that do kind of work, but at the same time, nothing there to really recommend it. It's a film that's mostly forgotten. Much like our last movie, which is Danny Boyle's follow-up to Trainspotting, this is Ewan McGregor and Cameron Diaz in A Life Less.
I'm his daughter.
Drive more carefully.
He cut in on me. You're the worst kidnapper I've ever met.
Well, I'm trying to do my best here under really difficult circumstances.
Have you even asked for a ransom yet?
Lucky your daughter here, and I'm going to send her back in pieces unless... Oh, I'm sorry, madam. No, I must have dialed the wrong number. I want her back, and I want him dead.
You know, we should kill him.
Yes.
It's extra.
Not gonna kill him.
How much you asking for?
$500,000.
$500,000 is not a lot of money for a woman like me.
I didn't mean it as a reflection of you as an individual.
I remember the good old days.
Don't even ask where I'm going.
Don't even imagine that I care.
All you had to do was introduce a man and a woman. Fate should be the rest. Doesn't work like that anymore.
Just for a minute, I thought we were in trouble. Are you going to leave?
We haven't got our money yet.
No. This is insane.
I'd like to make a withdrawal.
I thought we were great, no cliches.
Have you ever felt like you're not in control of events?
Yes?
What's wrong?
I thought you were going to shoot me.
I'm having a great time.
Oh, good.
Are you going to try to have sex with me?
No. Well, no. She said I feel sorry and you punch her in the face. Got a gun. That makes everything all right, does it?
What's he going to do with him? Shoot him in the back of the head. Would that be a problem for you?
Speaking of films with a lot of ambition and not that good of an execution, A Life Less Ordinary, you follow these two angels, played by Delroy Lindo and Holly Hunter, who are sent to Earth to make a disgruntled kidnapper, played by Ewan McGregor, and his hostage, played by Cameron Diaz, fall in love with each other. There's a little bit of some elements of another movie that Fox did 14 years prior to this, Two of a Kind, with John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, which kind of has a similar concept to it, only this one, at least this one, is trying to make it make sense instead of that movie where it's just like the whole fate of the world depends on John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John getting together in that movie because of the God played by Gene Hackman. And no joke, Gene Hackman played God in that movie, and that was not a good movie. But this, I won't say it's bad, but considering that he did Trainspotting before this, it's definitely a major step down. This is a film that was coming when Danny Boyle was kind of in a low point, kind of in like a lull. He was after Trainspotting, he did a couple of mediocre films like A Life Less Ordinary, and then followed this up with The Beach. But then he kind of slowly but surely gained his traction back with stuff like 28 Days Later, then Sunshine, Slumdog Millionaire, of course, that won Best Picture, 127 Hours, all these great movies that came after that. This is still kind of the lull. I mean, this is not a film that's really all that great, despite the best efforts of both Ewan McGregor and Cameron Diaz, and even Holly Hunter and Delroy Lindo. You also have Ian Holm, Dan Hedaya, Stanley Tucci, Maury Chaykin, Tony Shalhoub, Timothy Olyphant's in here as well. Just the story and the ideas are just not executed as well as I thought they were. I think Fox basically gave Danny Boyle the option to do whatever he wanted after they saw what happened with Trainspotting and say, this guy has the potential to do whatever he wants and make something good. Let's give him the keys to the kingdom. And it just didn't work out that way. And of course, the next film probably was the thing that stroked the camel's back for Danny Boyle, for him to say, I've got to get back on track and make some good movies again, which followed that up with 28 Days Later. But for this movie, it's just not that enjoyable. It's a film that really has some promising aspects to it, has some good ambitions to it, but the execution just doesn't work. It doesn't work very well here. The jokes overall are not that strong. It's just not an entertaining film. It's a film that's very, very disappointing and kind of a major letdown considering what Boyle had just done before this with Trainspotting. So yeah, that's A Life Less Ordinary for you. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. When we meet next time, we'll take a look at the films of Halloween weekend 1997, and I'm just looking at the list here. This is not looking promising. We have Richard Gere in Red Corner. We have Switchback. We also have Critical Care, and also I Love You, I Love You Not. 4 movies that I've never even heard of, so we can make this next one pretty quickly tomorrow. So it should be an easy one tomorrow, even though it'll be a pretty boring one regardless, because most of these movies I've never seen and have no real intentions of seeing, quite honestly. But we'll delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you always want to see more videos like this, if you want to see more videos, if you want to, Toy Boat. And as always, there we go, if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. So with that said, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.